What's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Welcome to another Budget Monk 119 video. And here today I'm showcasing basically the end. It's 1820, December the 2nd, 1820, of my Hungarian into Holy Roman Empire playthrough. Once upon a time when I used to play this game back in the day, I used to just pick a nation and play and see how well I could do. And I very, over time changed my kind of play style dramatically to be more focused on achievements and personal achievements. And yeah, I always wanted to actually conquer the world on Hungary because they have a special place in my heart. And by the time I actually felt like doing it, the realization came that I could conquer the world pretty easily on Hungary, actually, because my game had so much improved. And they have made a few additions, including, for example, taking admin from the clergy, and absolutism is a huge one, giving you admin efficiency, to the game, which actually makes it easier than in the past to do such things. And for that reason, I decided that I wanted to one-tag the world on Hungary. Now, keep in mind that when I say one-tag, I do have colonial nations, and I actually haven't annexed my own colonial nations, which you can do. There is actually no achievement for a one-tag, and for me, it's not even the tedium or the challenge, the reason that I don't annex my own subjects. It's just the stupidity. I don't like it, and that's why I didn't have that as my ambition to do. But we actually own the entire world, at least the conquerable world, and I'm really happy with how this went. And I also just want to say that although some people upload their videos and they have really impressive games and more impressive things than I have done, just keep in mind that what I do is legitimate. It is not exploited in any way, and I don't actually save scum, which is pretty impressive if I do say so myself. I'm not trying to gloat, but a lot of the other players, they do save scum. And I have a catalog of 104 episodes to actually kind of prove that. So with that being said, awesome game, and we did begin as the nation of Hungary. So I'm really going to quickly go over my ideas here. We went diplomatic ideas. It was actually sort of a personal challenge of mine to take diplomatic instead of influence as my first idea group. And the reason is because in many ways I view diplomatic to just be a better version of influence. The major things about influence which makes it so appealing are the integration cost and the aggressive expansion impact. And I was just thinking, if I could get away with not going for the aggressive expansion impact, I would have the lovely things like a lowered impact on stability from diplomatic actions, which is just so beautiful to have. I always find myself wanting this, and also the war score cost, but I never prioritize my second diplomatic idea. I always push it back and back and back, and I got away with taking it first, which is really nice, having the diplomat from the beginning of the game, the war score cost, the tech reduction from the beginning of the game, and I'm glad I pulled it off, which I was actually pretty impressed with myself. I didn't think I was going to be able to do that. If I show you the timeline, I'll explain why. We took religious ideas secondly, pretty standard stuff. I set the benchmark even higher. I was going for a one faith as well, and unfortunately we got pretty damn close. It came to a point in which, I mean, you can see here, our missionary strength is really strong. There's really not that much to do, maybe 5 years or something like that. It came to a point where I was really confident that I could get the one faith, but I couldn't get the one tag, basically, as well as the one faith. It was going to be one or the other. Like, for example, I could have released for the last 30 years 2 nice big nations to help me convert. I also could have done a lot of things throughout, but I was really worried about jeopardizing the one tag, which for me is a little bit more prestigious. I mean, we spiritually one faith the game. If this was to continue within a short amount of time, it would all be Catholic. But of course, that Deus Vult, absolutely crucial in the beginning of the game, especially as a nation like Hungary that can really take advantage of it into Orthodox and Sunni nations, and the missionary strength, etc., helping you, stabilize your country. Now, I took aristocratic ideas third. This was one of the big blunders of this game. So believe it or not, I learned by doing, and this is the first game that I have played on the Mandate of Heaven. I spent a long time playing on an outdated patch, actually doing a long series just like this one, my previous long series. And I didn't know that much about absolutism. People were sort of speculating that this was a buff to the aristocratic ideas with the 0.1 absolutism. I have to say, just from my experience, like, I like some things like the army tradition, and the cavalry combat ability is fine on a nation like Hungary that already has good cavalry initially. Obviously, it becomes almost useless by the end of the game. And the leader siege on your leaders is pretty cool. But I have to say that this is still a garbage idea, in my opinion. 0.1 yearly absolutism is so garbage, it could be 100% better up to 0.2 absolutism, and it would still be garbage, in my opinion. If it was 10 times better at 1 yearly absolutism, even then, at 10 times better, I think that this is still a bad idea. The reality is, if your absolutism does drop low, like ours is right now because of our legitimacy and so on, I wasn't interested in the absolutism at the end of the game because we had overkilled the world conquest. It takes a year. It takes a year to get it back up. If it was 10 times as good. In this case, it takes 10 years. Why would you ever do that when there are other methods, like if you're in a golden era, you can spend 45 military points to get it up immediately. As far as building it up towards 100, it is so trivial. Like, it gives you 1 over 10 years. Absolutely garbage. Pretty disappointing that I found out the hard way. Aristocratic ideas, big mistake taking that. We took exploration ideas. I also regretted taking this one. Exploration ideas, I thought it would be interesting and different. I was basically colonizing from Italy, and I'm going to go over the timeline here just in a moment. I ended up colonizing Cuba and New Hungary, and at the point that I took them, our economy was doing really well. Now, unfortunately, pretty much as soon as I took them, I started setting up some colonies, which does have an effect on the economy. I found myself fighting the Ottomans, but also, as we were the emperor, the French attacked the empire, and I found myself in some hard wars with taking out some heavy loans, and at that point I really regretted taking the exploration ideas. Next one was administrative, obviously for the core reduction costs. I actually left it there until the very end of the game. I decided I had invested so hard in subjects, trying to have my subjects convert for me, to try to get that one faith as well, that I did end up completing this as I had nothing else to spend my admin on in order to take this policy of 20% reduced annexation cost. Now, throughout the entire game, essentially, I just went to the core reduction cost and didn't progress any further because I was spending all my core on coring up the world. Offensive ideas, pretty standard. In some ways, it's weaker, but we were so powerful that it didn't really matter. Loving the siege ability, primarily, of offensive. It's a good idea in general, but the siege ability is one of those kind of gap closers. I hate sitting around for sieges. Offensive, nice there. And we took influence for obvious reasons, including diplomatic reputation, unjustified demands. But the reputation was quite important because I had the -3 from integrating subjects at all times, basically, especially towards the end of the game. And we also have the occupation of Rome because big middle finger to Paradox. I don't know why. The Holy Roman Empire is actually one of my more favored tags. I really like them. I feel like they're really quite unique in the sense that you can have, for example, Hungarian traditions, Holy Roman Empire. You can have all various forms of traditions and cultures and so on. Really cool tag. I like them. And this used to say, is not HRE. It now says, is not Roman Empire. Makes absolutely no sense. I mean, we are the Holy Roman Empire. I've spread Catholicism everywhere. I mean, the Roman Empire is pagan, for Christ's sake. So you can form a pagan Rome, and the Pope's like, yeah, it's cool. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Stupid game. Big FU to Paradox there. Don't like it. Please fix that Holy Roman Empire. I am the Pope. I am the Pope. Didn't you know? Do you want to fight about it? Either way, guys, as far as culture and stuff, not that much interesting stuff going on. We've got some Hungarians spread around, And unfortunately, the union's not so good. A lot of our colonies, so we got random provinces everywhere, as well as in the New World, Cuba and Hungary. The rest, of course, were taken from annexing other colonial nations. We got a lot of British, French, Brazil, Portuguese, New Castile, etc. Due to our ideas, actually don't have that much manpower, not up to 1 million. Economy is just laughable. I was placing as many colonists as I possibly could with my 2, kept recalling them and placing them, 500 a month, just everything's balling. Now, we do have some liberty desire. A lot of these guys, 50, 51, 50, 52, but just keep in mind that if it's my tech. It's my tech. But at the end of the game, I was spending my resources so heavily on just trying to integrate everything. So we're actually, if we look at French Canada here, he's at 31, 31, clear across the board. We're at 27, 28, 31. So if I was to take a Diplo at -20, we can see a lot of those same, ones, the liberty desires going away. Easily stabilize these subjects, no big deal. Given some time, not worried about that. And the other thing is, if we look at our achievements really quickly, got some nice achievements here. Most of them are, not that prestigious at all. Some newer ones, and some ones like Master of India, which surprisingly I don't have after all this time. Nothing crazy there. And I'm trying to think, what else should I show? I think that's just about it. So what we're going to do here... No. I wanted to show you really quickly that I can get some achievements. Like if I spent those points in Pest, for example, I could get City of Cities. Not too worried about that. Let's look at the timeline. So I'm going to go over this pretty sort of slowly, and then we'll do a real quick one as well. So obviously, I wanted to form the empire. So there are 2 tactics basically, and one is to be elected the emperor, which is definitely doable if you get a Diplo-Rep advisor, Diplo-Reputation from the Pope, and you exclusively ally strategic, electors. But for me personally, I was really worried about getting their votes because I was going to have such high aggressive expansion. So in order to make that more obtainable, that electorship vote, I actually released Transylvania, as you can see, in order to become small enough to just add my land to the empire. We added Pest, became a member of the empire, and then we don't get that horrible negative, is not a member of the empire modifier to actually obtain the vote. And therefore we went really hard into Italy here. You can see a small move against the Papal State as well as Venice, and the reason, of course, is to reign in Italy. So I wanted to both get the first vote before, 1490, when the Austrian ruler dies, because he's about 27, so given 30 years or so, pretty much guaranteed to die. We got that vote, as well as actually had the provinces to reign in Italy. So pretty proud of myself, because like I alluded to earlier, we went diplomatic ideas, and we didn't get that 20% aggressive expansion reduction. So I almost thought it would not be doable, but it turned out to be doable, and I was pretty proud of myself for that. It was rough, the aggressive expansion, the coalitions, etc. Now, obviously, doing some general annexation of Serbia and Wallachia and so on. You can see some of these provinces, if we turn the speed up, I don't end up taking. I'm actually trying to convert people to Catholicism, actually, and I was trying to give them the opportunity, some of these guys, to actually join the empire, because we did spread it out towards them. Unfortunately, they were not that cooperative, and I was worried about the Ottomans annexing them. So we ended up annexing most of these guys ourselves. Pomerania doing some interesting action here. I remember thinking, wow, Pomerania is probably going to form Prussia. It's really nice to see members of the empire expanding outwards of the empire. We did diplo-vassalize Moldavia after wrecking Poland, and that kind of created the decline of Poland with Bohemia and Pomerania expanding outwards. Now, I was worried about Pomerania forming Prussia, because basically any Pomeranian, Saxon, or Prussian can form Prussia, but if they begin inside the empire, it actually says on the decision to form Prussia, you will leave the empire. when you form Prussia. Now, the reason that typically, like Brandenburg, if you play a Brandenburg game, you don't leave, is because you are an elector. And so I had that in mind, that if we didn't make Pomerania an elector, he would actually leave the empire when he formed Prussia. It was one of my concerns. I didn't want that, but it's really nice to see the empire itself autonomously expanding, because we would ultimately inherit it. I did end up making Pomerania an elector to try to avoid that. Obviously, by the way, we've been rivaling Aragon and bringing France in against him, as France was my ally. At this point, we took a huge chunk out of the Ottomans, and I finally felt like maybe the Ottomans would stop being such a brutal threat. The issue, of course, with the Ottomans is that you take chunks from them, but they expand as well. And these provinces, they go from Aden into Alexandria into Constantinople, and they're all fully accepted culture because of their free government rank. So having both it's not just land that they can take easily, it's culture that they accept, and it's very economic with the trade at the very least. So even though the development is not that high here, he freely expands, and the Ottomans is such a pain. Like, even when you take big chunks out of them, they're taking big chunks elsewhere, and they continue being really powerful. Now, Brandenburg did end up forming Prussia. And unfortunately, guys, we have been the emperor, by the way, for a long time. I ended up passing about 4 reforms, and the Protestant leagues began. Now, he was obviously leading the Protestant League, and he was becoming a really big issue, because I was actually worried about the fact that I might not be able to get his vote ultimately for revoke privilegia. We did end up dealing with that down the line. Now, France here, you can see we've released some land from him. I hate France, guys. I hate them. I loved them because I allied them. You can see he's gobbled up some land here. Initially, France actually attacked the empire. Now, France was my ally, and I was so mad because it was basically a suicidal war. Oh, by the way, we PU'd Russia as well. We PU'd Russia about 10 years ago. The method that I actually got Russia this time was he had a weak claim, and I had a Russian queen. I tried to actually kill off my ruler while my heir was in regency, and we barely got it within like a year window of where my queen claimed the throne. Because he had a weak claim, we took it, and then of course her heir inherits both nations, getting a PU there. Now, Prussia and the Ottomans were both allied to each other. When I was fighting the Ottomans, it was killing me, man. I wanted to take huge chunks out of them, but I was fighting Prussia indirectly, 100%ing him, releasing the Teutonic Order, etc., because I actually wanted to weaken him to make sure he would vote for our revoke. Also, we started in Tunis here, set up a colony, and been expanding here like crazy. It's the year 1600, so we expand really rapidly, using that Holy War CB in our basically African colony and making it really, really large, beginning with West Africa. I wanted to talk about France, though. About 100 years ago, he attacked me. He attacked the empire, and it was a suicidal war, guys. It was suicidal. I had such good diplomacy, and that's why I'm so mad, is because he shouldn't have done it. Like, there was no way he could win it, so we kicked his ass and weakened him down a bit, and then he kept doing it down the line, and it was just so costly. Like, the point is that I could handle it, no problem, but it was just at what cost? I'm trying to conquer the world, and this guy's declaring suicidal wars on the empire. So I ended up just letting him have land, and man, it drives me nuts. I hate that guy for doing that. Now, Russia's going to be integrated here in about 10 years, I think. We've been working on that for ages. Pretty nice Russia, obviously not that strong. A huge amount of war score here in the Russian region, but less influence in Asia. When we do integrate him, though, I've also revoked. I think I revoked just about now. You can see all the little individual princes that I actually released in order to get as much imperial authority as possible. These are in non-stated territories, and trying to get that as much as possible, because I actually didn't have that much land, as you cannot add Africa, and I couldn't make a bridge here to the Iberian Peninsula where I own this land to add that to the empire. As soon as the Protestant leagues disappeared, I wanted to actually revoke as soon as possible, and that's why I released all these individual princes. So we've definitely revoked by now, and Russia's going to be integrated here really shortly, and I've been expanding primarily in Africa. Got Cuba going, we got New Hungary going as well, and at some point here... Oh, this doesn't look right. The New World in this timeline is a little bit bugged out here. Obviously, with my absolutism high, I fully annex Castile, fully annex Portugal, and actually inherit their colonies. But they're a little bit bugged out here, I think, because they're the same kind of color as they are ultimately. But this should be Castilian stuff right now. Integrated Russia feels good, man. And they're giving us that holy war CB all across the world. But of course, these are primarily Ming tributaries, so we didn't deal with any of this in Asia for a long time. There was a massive Persia, by the way. It was really sweet. I think Tabistan actually fought in Persia, which is pretty cool. But gobbling them up, making our way into India here, and the empire is looking really nice. Obviously, the Teutonic Order is a subject fed the Livonian Order to him. I almost PU'd Scandinavia this game, guys, but I dropped the ball. And like I said, I don't save scum, so I messed it up with about like a few days, literally like maybe 10 days. I didn't send an emissary there. It was pretty depressing. And we had an opportunity to PU him, but it was very unfortunate. And yeah, like I said, I don't save scum, so instead I began feeding him to the Empire and also France here. We feeding Bar, some of France as well, annexing the Iberian Peninsula. Now these colonies are mine, of course, boosting our economy. Speaking of economy, because of the French and Ottoman wars simultaneously, my economy was the pits for like 100 years. It was just awful. And because of my inexperience playing Hungary with the Black Army event, it's really expensive to maintain the Black Army. And I spent a lot of money on that, which was basically wasted because it has a finish date, which I wasn't aware of. And the main incentive of the Black Army, of course, we're about to unite the Empire here shortly. Fed France to the Empire like crazy, and then united it. Very nice. The Ottomans on the way out. Bakhmanis is huge. At this stage, Bakhmanis has a higher war score cost than Ming themselves, but of course they don't have the tributary states to actually declare on and continuously get yourself back into war with Ming. So we didn't end up doing quite some truce breaks here. But you can see with the absolutism capped out with the golden era, whatever it's called, taking a huge chunk of Bakhmanis there. And reducing Scandinavia, well, there we go, fully annexing him, France, and reducing all the other nations to a fully annexable size, although some of them, like Great Britain, we did go way over our overextension to actually take them out in one smooth war. But of course, at this stage, fully annexed every colonial nation and actually inherited each of their colonies, working primarily on Asia here. Obviously, Ming, we did a little bit of border gore, taking each of his forts in sort of one or two wars so that he would be really smooth and easy and carpet siegeable as we just declare on another one of his tributary states back to back to back. Now, some of these guys are my subjects, and there's going to be some nations here all the way until the end of the game because they are actually my subjects, including Malakia. I create some Indians, Mongolia, this guy here, don't know how to say his name, Yi here, a lot of subjects, but pretty self-explanatory. That's pretty much it. I was using these subjects and enforcing religion on them to try to get that one faith. Came a little bit short. I just wanted to say that the Black Army's main strength is giving you yearly army tradition, but when you actually cancel the Black Army, you get like 25 army tradition. So I really dropped the ball there, but there was just no way for me to know. I had to learn the hard way that I should have cancelled it. We were in massive amount of debt, and I kept maintaining the Black Army, and then it just, cancelled on me, and we wasted a lot of army tradition where I was overkilling 100, but of course it doesn't go over 100, so that didn't feel good. These guys are all my subjects, and I've taken that policy for 20% reduced cost, and we're integrating them there, and falling a little bit short of the one faith. But this was a fantastic game. Really, really enjoyed it, and I hope I showed off everything nicely. Just to reiterate, there is a full series of me playing through every single episode, every moment of this game on my channel. I know most of you will not be into it. Trust me, I wasn't into it either at some stages, when I'm playing. It's just madness, it's just madness. I'm thinking to myself, why did I do this? Fully committing to it, uploading every day. it becomes a chore. There's a point where it becomes a chore. But I'm really looking forward to the next expansion and starting up another series. Maybe not so ambitious, but we will see. And we're going to go full speed here and watch the massive progression here. So thank you very much for watching this episode, this video, and I hope that you enjoyed. It was worth it in the end. But we still have to get one faith one day. So this is my personal best, probably game ever, really. Never done a one tag before, and we did it with Hungary, which is obviously not one of the immediately best and strongest choices. So feeling pretty good about that. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in another video.